All right. Well, we've got a good crowd checking in today. We must have a special guest. We do, and I'll introduce you to him in just a moment. So, welcome back to Neighboring 101. This is session 74, actually. And Neighboring 101 is where we talk to leaders in the neighboring movement all across the United States. And we discover ways that organizations and individuals can use the art and skill of neighboring as part of community and personal development. So thank you for joining us today. We try to start right on time. Chat is open, of course. You can use chat for questions or comments. Would love to see in chat why you took the time, why you thought it was important for you to be here today. Why was it important for you to be here today? I'd love to see others comment on that. And while you're responding to that question, I'll just remind you of the two or three upcoming sessions to have on your radar. December 18th, we're going to have Kathy Huckabee from the Community Positive Project. She's the creator of that project. We're going to kind of do a reverse interview with Kathy and talk to her about some of the interviews and projects that she has been most impressed by in neighborhoods over the past 10 years that she's been doing the Community Positive Project. In January 19th, we will have Matt Evans. He is the creator of Out and About. He will join us to discuss that really brilliantly simple yet powerful concept in community building. You might want to bring your lawn chair to that one if you know anything about Out and About. And then we have a bonus session on Groundhog Day. That's Monday, February 2. Jennifer Wallace is going to be with us. Jennifer is an award-winning journalist and best-selling author, and she has a new book coming out that week, actually. It's called Mattering: The Secret to a Life of Deep Connection and Purpose. That book focuses on that universal human need to feel valued and to offer value. So that is Jennifer Wallace on Groundhog Day. Pardon me. So hopefully this is always on your calendar for the third Thursday and of the month, and we love to have you. Well, I want to get introductions out of the way so we can get going with our discussion. We have a group of leaders on today to help us explore Peter Bloch's book, The Structure of Belonging. Steve Miller from Springfield. Steve, you might wave a little bit in case people can't see the name. Steve has spent decades strengthening community life by helping neighbors build trust, take ownership, and create places where everyone feels like they can belong. He has read this book a number of times. He's probably lost count, but I know he has taught from it and done trainings from The Structure of Belonging. We're also joined by Trenton Sims. Trenton, with the array of books back behind him, he is a energetic and thoughtful civic leader in Republic, Missouri. That is Trenton Sims, citizen of the same city that I live in. We're also pleased to have David Bennett from Manchester, Missouri. David is a seasoned community organizer and has helped countless residents move from ideas to action through shared leadership and meaningful participation. I know he has also led several studies and discussions using this book. And then finally, our very, very special guest, Peter Bloch himself, author of The Structure of Belonging. Certainly, Peter is one of the most influential thinkers in modern community development. He has spent a career reminding us that community is built through invitation and accountability and possibility, and his work really challenges all of us to reimagine our role as neighbors and citizens. Peter, thank you for being with us here today as we discuss the structure of belonging. So, to our panelists, what is your favorite part of the book? It's kind of a way to get us kick started. What's your big takeaway from the structure of belonging? You can all jump in at once.
Well, I like I would start by saying I would call it a launch point of making difference between retributive and restorative thinking about all the things that we do actually, and building a community around restoration. Uh, the uh, the concepts that are in the first of the book, I think, lay a foundation then to move into the action of actually bringing people together around topics of difference. But all of that with that purpose of restoring and with intentionality of restoring.
Restoring. I like that word choice. That's good. So,
David, I don't know if there's any one particular thing about the book that's better than the other because like you had mentioned, I'm on my fourth trip through the book. I travel a lot, so it's great to have it in my ear while I'm driving. But the thing that I think really, when I really settled into it to begin with, was the talk about, invariably in community or wherever we find ourselves in convening in spaces, we always get dogged by the problem, and we can go around and around the mulberry bush, so to speak. And to really start to understand how this framework can be used, or these conversations can be harnessed to really lead a group of individuals to possibility. And every time I think of possibility, I light up inside. It's like, what a contrast to problem. Like, let's talk about what's possible in our communities or with our organizations or
mhm.
whatever we find ourselves convening around, because to me, that's just beautiful. And like I said, every time I say possibility in these conversations, I'm just like, I get goosebumps. So it's a much better framework than problem, 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 problem.
Love that. Trenton, you were getting ready to share?
For me, I like what really stuck out to me and why. I mean, I'm just a fan of anything Steve Miller recommends, but the book specifically talks about inverting power relationships, that the audience makes the play as much as the play itself.
Mhm.
And I worked in community development for about 14, 15 years. And I felt like if I could write a grant, then that would happen. But even when the grant was gone, like the group was gone. So I appreciate how this book kind of helps empower the citizens themselves to realize that, you have the capacity to create the solution. Like, you don't necessarily have to treat the city as, the person that's going to solve the problem for you. You yourself can do it yourself. And I liked that part of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Peter, you're the author. You're the one that's lived with this the longest, probably, right? And crafting and everything. Do you have a favorite part or something you want to highlight?
Well, it's very touching to me to hear you. This something I created has meaning for you. So thank you. When I was thinking of writing the book about community, my wife said, Peter, don't you think you should try it first? And I thought she's right. So that postponed the book for a while. But I think that what endures with me is the notion that leadership is about connecting. It's not about being a role model or making decisions or being a visionary. And you all are connectors. And I think building social capital is the point. And I also think it confronts people with their accountability. It's an alternative to a consumer world. Right now, I think I can purchase everything that matters. I want the school to raise my child. I want the police to keep me safe. I want the healthcare profession to keep me healthy. I want somebody,
Mhm.
Toyota, to move to town and give me a job. None of those work. They're useful. God bless them, but they are beside the point. And so you're asking people to become citizens instead of consumers. And it's inconvenient, it's slow, and hard to get your hands around. A friend of mine's working with schools. Dan, he says, a real transformation is small, slow, and underfunded. And I thought, okay, there's something I can handle. And anyway, I'm interested in your thoughts and stuff like that. And I do think that the book it gives a methodology as well as a purpose. And I just think even virtually we can engage with a speaker, but really having people hear each other is where transformation takes place. And I've been to Rotary meetings. Okay. Hi, Peter. Thank you. I'm a citizen of Cincinnati. And I say, thank you for having me. And you're up on a podium with this microphone. And I said, I'm the speaker. I'd like you to break into small groups and answer the question, when did you first start caring about this community? Peter, that's not what we brought you in here for. I know. Eye contact, smile, because what you're talking about is not what people are expecting. And you do it with love and compassion. But I know if they connect with each other, that's what they'll remember. And that's why an asynchronous world is a tragedy in a way, because I never fall in love with anybody. I just pretend that I'm learning something. Thus ends my presentation.
Well,
one other thing is, when I saw what you're doing, I just thought, wow, this is journalism. See, part of the challenge is I'm bombarded every day with what's wrong, and journalism has left the neighborhood, left the local, it's gone national. And if you're not angry and depressed, you're just not paying attention. And then, what do I do with that? Well, I do what you're doing, David, and all of you. And the neighborhood is the unit of transformation, not the family, not the individual. And I feel that's within reach. And thank you for what you're doing, period.
Well, thank you for your kind comments there. I do believe we get more of what we celebrate, and this is an opportunity to celebrate what's going right, what people are doing in neighborhoods and patterns that we can follow. And I think that's an important part of bringing about some of the change we want to see. Well, and I've seen several comments in chat, and Coco up in Vancouver says, I have a framed print next to my work desk that says, to be truly radical is to make hope possible rather than despair convincing. I love that quote. And that really kind of fits with one of the themes of the book, was this whole idea of that you argue in the book about shifting the narrative from what's broken to what's possible. And in practice, how do we get a group or a community to move from that problem solving mode into the possibility mode? And I say that, I'm going to drop something else in chat here, which are the 6 big themes of the book, so people have that.
Let me respond, David, that the shift comes with one question. And the most useful question I found everywhere, because you're always looking for questions that mean something, is what's the crossroads you're at this stage of the game? And as soon as I answer that, I become an agent, I become a player. And for me to decide that I'm creating the world I'm inhabiting is the basis of possibility. It's not that problems don't exist, it's just the way we solve them doesn't work for everyone. And the beauty of possibility is that if I'm a possibility of a neighborly Missouri, well, what's that look like? Don't worry about that. It's just that possibility walks into every room that you enter. And that's very different than, we're a dominantly Black city in Cincinnati, and we've done 14 studies in the last 18 years on racism in Cincinnati. And guess what they found? It's a problem. And guess what their recommendations were? We need another study. And so what you're letting go the university setting is extremely difficult. Is the notion that analyzing something creates an alternative future.
Well, Steve, Trenton, David, what has been your experience? Have you had some good experiences with moving people from what's broken to what's possible? You think there's Is it the questions, as Peter mentions?
Well, what I wanted to share is so I first picked up this book. A friend of mine just offhanded said, "Have you ever read Peter Bloch's?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And come to find out, she's never read it either. She had just thought it would resonate with me, and she was surprised. I mean, I finished it like 3 days later. And like I said, I'm going through it again. But I in every public presentation I've done, I've included at least one conversation, if not something that's centered around all six of them. Just to me, it's like spreading the gospel. I think it's fascinating. And when you mentioned earlier, Peter, you said it methodology and purpose, and I think that that's what I realized upon reading it the first time was someone had actually written kind of a structure or a framework for the way I think. And it was like, oh, there's a language that I can start accessing here to bring all these things that I've done, community building around the arts. I work in the prevention, behavioral mental health sphere. And how can we start to actionize some of these coalitions that kind of get stuck sometimes in problem solving? So just a couple of weeks ago, we work with a model in prevention called Strategic Prevention Framework. I went in and did a side-by-side comparison of what we work with this model. And I said, here's a language that you can start using at your coalition level to start conversation. And the response was overwhelming. They set me up in a small room, and I thought, well, not many people are going to come to this because I was in this little room, and people had to like sit on the floor and stand against the wall. There was over 90 people that showed up for it. And from that, we've had, I think I counted 36 people that are going to join a community of practice that I'm going to launch. And we're going to start having a conversation about how to design these conversations. We're going to start with the invitation and what does that look like? And how can we start to leverage some of this methodology or whatever to
mythology is right.
Yeah, and to turn it into a purpose. Because I see people get stuck so much on what should we do. And my favorite is, oh, well, we tried that before and it'll never work. And it's like, let's get some legs up underneath that, and then let's decide whether or not what we're talking about is going to make a change in our communities. Because the other thing is about the convening part of the work is, I'm a person also in long-term recovery, and I understand that isolation is a huge part of addiction and mental health challenges and struggles in our community. And the more we identify that and we address the stigma around that, and the more conversation we can have, the better we are as a community as a whole. And I find that to be integral in the part of the work that I'm doing. And like I said, it was just kind of a godsend for me to be like, wow, there's a whole framework here that I've been like thinking or didn't even know that I would exist. And lo and behold, I've been shouting it from the rooftops for the last year. So
Thank you, Steve.
grateful for its
I love that.
existence. Yeah.
I love that.
You gave me a new word, actionize.
Yeah. I make words up, Peter, so don't quote me if that's even a word. We'll have to get the journalist on that.
It's a word now. You can't get you're doomed.
You heard it here first.
I have a thought, Steve, as you bring these 30 people together, that helping them get connected to each other rather than just talk about what we want to do.
Yeah.
Huge. So every time we're together. Anyway, thank you for all you said. So amazing.
And that takes time getting people connected. That's not like a microwave. It doesn't happen suddenly.
But no, it takes 12 minutes.
Just based on asking those right questions.
If you break them into groups of 3 and ask them a question, why was it important? Any of the questions. What's the know you? What's the crossroads? What's the gift they realize they're not alone by listening to other people. That you have to tell them, don't be helpful. So for everything we do, we have to suspend advice. Because if I think I know what's best for you, I've colonized you. And so it's liberating to not have to be helpful. Just be curious. And then it's amazing to me. You can have a group of 50, 100. I've done it with 4,000. Now, they all didn't do it. but 12 minutes, what's the crossroads you're at? Why was it important? And I ask them what struck you, and they all say, I'm not as alone today as I was when I walked in the room. 12 minutes. And so you're talking about accelerating, and then it takes a lifetime, David, like you say. Anyway, sorry for talking.
No, we love to hear from you. We love to hear from you.
One other thing, I did it with the police. We had a safety meeting in our neighborhood. Somebody got shot on Saturday night, and everybody comes together on Tuesday, and I happened to be convening that meeting. I said, thank you for coming. And the police there, the TV's there. I said, would you break up in groups of 4 and answer the question, when did you start caring about your neighborhood? And it was a different room once they started talking to each other. They wanted to know what's the police going to do. And I said, if you're an officer, join a group, and so you can take it anywhere. And nothing works all the time. Sorry.
No, that's great. We'd love to hear from you. David, can I put you on the spot? I know you helped convene or was part of convening and discussion in Manchester, Missouri. Does that sound familiar, what he's talking about? Was that some of the technique there, and how did that work for you guys in Manchester?
It certainly did. I had just retired as a clergy in the United Methodist Church. I had been serving in Kirkwood for 20 years at the United Methodist Church. And if you may recall, in 2008, there was an African-American man who was well known in the community and highly respected, but had some emotional issues, but walked into City Hall and shot council people. There were 2 police officers that were shot and killed, public works officer, council person, and a couple of others wounded in the process. Our city, that was very proud of itself for managing racial issues and other kind of things like that, kind of went into shock and struggled with their own identity. In this case, and this is where Peter's book really emerged for me and became very useful. Within a few hours, actually, in a day or so, several of us in the city, civilian leaders, got together and knew we had to do something. In the meantime, I was called upon to ask if our church could be used for the African American shooter for a funeral, because he was also kind of shocked a lot of the folks in the largely white community. And we ended up with, it's a 500 kind of seat church. We ended up with 700 folks kind of all out and around. The unique circumstances of this, in that this shooter was well known in the community, probably could have gotten voted in as mayor. So there was relationship already there, and a lot of confusion in the community. Shortly thereafter, about 15 of us got together and formulated conversation groups. We had 4 months on a given one Saturday per month for about 3 hours, where we invited people in the community to come. We had a brief introduction, and then for 2 hours, they broke up into small groups for conversation. We had scribes and then facilitating leaders also, but scribes who initiated and recorded the concerns that people had. And there were about 400 people that came each Saturday. Now, this is a crisis, and so people want to do something in the midst of a crisis. And so we were able to seize that moment and really to activate folks. As a result of those 4 months, we had tabulated a lot of story from people who had lived in the community, had known, his name was Charles Thornton, known as Cookie, had known him and were just kind of amazed at what had happened, as well as knowing the folks who were shot and killed in this event. out of that, U.S. Department of Justice came in. We did a effort for mediation and wrote a mediation agreement. It caused the city to ask questions and enter into conversation. And what I found, which is not so surprising, but cities are made up of units that are silos, and these compartments of cities don't always talk to each other in a way that they need to. And this created an environment for that to occur as well. I'm sorry, that's a backdrop because when I retired and was living in Manchester, Mayor Mike Clement, which I think was pretty visionary is very visionary in many ways and is a possibility thinker, asked me if I would come and talk to the city manager, chief of police, deputy chief of police, council or board of alderman woman, Megan Heather, who is with us here this afternoon. And we sat at a table and began talking because our city had just had 3 incidents of policing overreaching with African American shoppers in our stores. And we were on Fox News, and our mayor wanted to have a conversation about this. And I went to the meeting and we were talking about this one concept that I talk about is a place to start is to lessen the distance, that we are all at distances in various ways. And the question is, how can we lessen the distance between us? And that applied directly to them in a way, as the way they, you have responsibilities and there's only so much time. But and while we were there, we were about to leave, and I had taken Peter Bloch's book with me. It was sitting there, and the mayor asked, "Well, what's this book about?" And I began to share a little bit about it. And he said, "Well, how about if we spend the next 4 weeks for about an hour and we explore this book?" And we chose to do that. And the book began to offer alternative language that led us to different discussions, that led us to different conclusions and actions along the way. As a result of the first 4 weeks, I would call it, we all decided to keep going, and we ended up meeting every week except Christmas week for 10 months, which I was just thrilled. I basically was a facilitator. We got to the place where they were Zoom meetings when we got together. We would read pieces and discuss, and it really became a forum for all of them to talk about their issues and not just the academic reflection of the book itself. As a result, the chief of police asked me to lead a 4-hour workshop with 32 police officers. Later on, the mayor asked me to lead a workshop with some of the directors of our city. And it began to be some new language and some new understandings that I think, I'm not saying that's where it started, but it certainly aided in what continued to progress. And Megan, who is with us here, attended what's called Civic Saturday workshop. That's what I would call it. Megan, you can clarify, but she basically brought back some of these same kind of concepts, and we've adopted in the city what we call civic season, which is more than just one given Saturday, which activates people into thinking about what does it mean to be a citizen. I'm sorry, I'm a preacher and I probably talked too long, but all of this is, this book really was the seed and the fertile ground for new thinking in both Kirkwood and in Manchester in many ways too.
Yeah, that's a high testimony right there. Well,
it's a great role for the church to bring people together in that way, because you already have the language. It's just most churches don't know how to enact it.
Yeah.
We're still in the pews waiting for the professional to interpret God for us, as if God can't speak for herself,
Right.
Anyway, it's cool.
Well,
I occasionally, one last thing, tell a story about one of my favorite movies, Spartacus, and you all probably know this, but at one point in the movie, the Romans have captured the folks who are the gladiators, who are slave gladiators, and they say, "We'll let you live if you will give us Spartacus." And someone stands up and says, I'm Spartacus. And then another one stands up and says, I'm Spartacus, and I'm Spartacus. And they all rise to say, I'm Spartacus. And that was a kind of shrewd move. But more than that, the vision of Spartacus of seeking freedom, or in this case, for all of us to find communities that are safe, that are healthy, communities that are inviting and hospitable. I just invited a group of folks not long ago to say, I'm Manchester, and they joined me. And it breaks down to all of us being Manchester, not just the mayor or the Board of Aldermen. But so when somebody asks, where's Manchester? You're looking at it. And to claim that, it means it puts a burden of responsibility on me, which is a good thing, as well as all of us taking ownership.
I love that. Well, Trenton, when I steal that and use that at our next Rotary meeting, you know where it came from.
Do it, please spread it.
There's a word, some of it is getting people connected, but you're really trying to shift where accountability resides for our well-being.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you wrote a book called Activating the Common Good, where citizens reclaim control of their well-being. And that is a beautiful intention for the schools, for Rotary, is to bring, and it is a shift in narrative. I learned from Warner Earhart, he says, all transformation is linguistic. And I took that seriously. And the way I take ownership is not I'm held accountable. It's that I connect with people and we choose to create something ourselves that matter. And whatever the reason of coming together, it doesn't matter. It can be something violent, it could be school, any place, it doesn't matter.
David, you mentioned in your city coming together initially 400 people in a group. There's a question here in chat from Chet in Ohio. He says, when you refer to small groups in the book, are you talking about that neighborhood level type of scale, or is it even smaller unit like your immediate nearby neighbors or just your block or just your building? Probably means apartment. Is there a maximum number of persons in those small groups that you would hypothesize is the ideal size for a hyper local organizing?
Smaller is probably better, but when we would hold this monthly meeting, and we had about 400, we had a number of trained facilitators, but we ended up dividing them out, and there were probably 15, which would be probably too large in some ways, but that was the circumstance we had to deal with. I think the important thing is that you have a good facilitator that manages the group and makes sure that everyone gets to speak. Or there's sometimes people that don't want to speak, but I will say, Bob, what did you hear this person say? And it gives them a chance to step in and express something in some way. When we did this, we also, one other thing, we had them sign up, and we gathered a little bit of information. And for the first half hour, we had a little orientation. And part of that was to process putting these groups together. We didn't know who was coming at any given time. And so we tried to really create a mixture of persons. So gender, age, ethnicity, all of those kind of things, so that in the groups, there would be diversity along the way. So wonderful people that worked very quickly to organize these groups. And when they came out of that first half hour session, they broke up into these 10 to 15 person small groups.
You can also be it simple. I like groups of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And I don't care if there's
a lot of people.
Well, 400 people in the room, you break up into 100 groups of 3 or 4. Because that means that
many rooms.
you don't need it. You make
Peter.
little circles in the room you're in. If you get rid of those pews, it would help. We'll talk about that later. Okay.
Well, we finally did too. I like that.
Small.
And you just give them a question. And it doesn't matter if they answered or not. The question is powerful.
Yep.
And when you do that, it just changes the tone of our being together.
Mhm.
And we've done it on extremely volatile issues, and it takes the anger out of the room.
Mm.
You talk about a developer wanting to develop, 1,100 units on this street. And what are you doing? And we got them all together with the developers, broke them into groups of three, and says, what are you concerned about? What kind of building would appealing for you? And they said, I want to age in place. I want setbacks. I want the building to look like this. I want no heart. And the developer says, thank you. And the anger went away.
We found it was very helpful to have scribes that recorded what was said so that later on people could read what they had said, and it gave them a sense that they had been heard. And in fact, that was the basic agenda that went into for that circumstance, into the mediation agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice. We had a community team that took the voices that we had been hearing for 4 months of what they valued in our community. And so that scribe thing, in this case, became very useful. It valued what people were speaking.
Yeah.
And you can, if a group of 3 or 4 say, would one of you take notes and turn them in?
Yeah.
You don't need somebody who's assigned, And then when you break them into groups, you say, find 2 or 3 other people that you don't know.
Yeah.
And so what Manchester did in a crisis was welcome strangers.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, one of the
No, that's great.
certainly one of the buzzwords these days is belonging, and you were way ahead of the curve by having that so prominently in the book. Really, kind of the heart of the book, even really. And you define community not just by geography and interest, but by this felt sense of belonging. Can you unpack that a little bit more for us about this? How we define belonging, how we determine is simple participation the same as membership? How do we need to look at this concept of belonging? It seems to be so very central, so very important to the whole book.
Well, I think of it, how do you change the world one room at a time? Which room is that? The one you're in. And so rather than what is belonging, you say, how do you produce it? And every time we gather, even this moment, if we had it in mind, we could break people into groups of 3 and say, how is this landing on you? And so I just one room at a time. And I don't care why they come together. Is it the land, is it conversation? Are they angry? Are they happy? Are they celebrate? And every time they come together, we say, before we get to the substance of what we're doing, we want to get connected. Would you break into groups of 3 with 2 people you don't know and sit in a small circle, get away from the tables or the pews? And I've done it in churches. And I once was asked to give a sermon at a New Thought Unity Church. And I said, what do you want from me? And they said, be done by 5 till 12. Finally, an expectation I could meet. And so to me, the experience of belonging is to find people that I can be vulnerable with without anybody being helpful. That's how you produce it. That's it. And you're trying to build trust among strangers, trust among friends. And then that's the methodology. And I know that no matter what we're up to, if we have come to trust 2 or 3 other people, I trust the whole room. It's kind of we don't have a good way of thinking when it comes to the body. We know everything about every little molecule and atom. When it comes to group work or community work, we're making it up as we go along. Mm-hmm. And I did use that word. That's the best title I have, the structure of belonging. Because there is a structure to it. Now, there's lots of structures. There's open space, there's Grove Cafe, there's all kinds of methodologies. But what they all do is first off, fast off, they get people in small groups connected, talking about something that matters, not not why you came. Okay, I'm not interested in your story, really. I was if we're socializing, but most of us have a story, but we made it up. And part of the transformation is to say, well, what's the story I want to live into now? The story I came here with doesn't take me anywhere anymore. And so you're not wanting people to analyze the world, you want them to experience. And that's what the questions do. What's the crossroads you're at? What doubts do you have? What's the resentment you have nobody knows about? What? Then don't answer. I say I pass. And you say, what's the gift you have? And every time we gather, we end by sharing the gifts we got from each other in this moment. And these are conversational domains, and they just connect us so fast. And then we can talk about what we want to do. And that it's a miracle to me that these protocols are so durable. And so I can go anywhere I am, anywhere you are, you can realize that people connecting with each other, being vulnerable with each other in quiet ways, and not help, changes the room, changes the world. Absolutely. And we don't have those structures. Our structures for democracy don't work anymore.
Well, Trent, you represent our younger end of the demographic on this little panel that we put together. I'd love to hear from you about your impressions of the book, maybe what has been the most powerful concept from your perspective.
I appreciate a lot of what Mr. Block said, kind of about like the professionalization of the field. So I did nonprofit work for about 10 or 15 years. At certain times, the work would be around like program design and evaluation. Sometimes we would be bringing together groups around collective impact. Other times I would be in an agency, and that agency would be focusing on moving the needle around like an evidence-based practice. And at the end of the day, like, I mean, how many community meetings have different various cities brought together? How many studies have been done? And none of these problems have been solved. And, I mean, like, so I read David Brooks's How to Know a Person, and it's for like an introvert, like just ask people's questions. And it felt like a 101 introductory book that you should read before they read this one, to just like know how to talk to somebody. And then this book was like, this is how you have conversations about actually creating community. And maybe we won't solve the problems, and maybe moving the needle on poverty or, crime, or like maybe the real thing is just focusing on the person in front of me. Like, we can't make it where like so-and-so is in this position, so their job is to solve this social issue. Like, we can't be consumers anymore. We have to like know who lives next to us, know who they are. And then I think if we're just in community together, then these problems will go away. Like, focusing on the problems themselves isn't going to solve, like, the industrial society that we've created, where now someone's a trained social worker and they're the expert. Now someone's that's what I liked about it.
That's beautiful, Trent, because people aren't cases. And if I want to deal with people we don't use the word poverty anymore. Because if I call you poor, I declare you broken. You're not broken. You just don't have any money. We've all known that. And so even with those people, you get them together and do just what you described. And focus on what their gifts are, not what's wrong with them. Focusing on deficiencies doesn't take me anywhere. It's just fun. And the domain you're speaking of, Trent, is huge, because we do care. And sometimes I call it the social service industrial complex. And what you said is another way of being with that, where the compassion gets focused on what people are good at instead of what's wrong with them. We had our own riots, and group was doing cop watch, which is total futility. And they decided to say, well, let's find out what these urban kids want. And what they loved was hip hop. And so we started a hip hop center, which is my style, as you can imagine. We started, and we asked them, "What do you love to do?" We never asked them what's wrong with them. We didn't care if they lived on the street. I didn't care where they slept that night. I don't care how many years of schooling you have. I don't care whether you have a record. You want to sing, you want to dance, you want to lay down beats, you want to learn to be an engineer, you want to do graffiti. And we're 20 years into it now. Thousands of kids have discovered that they are here to figure out what they're good at, even if school didn't work. Anyway, sorry. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Trent. You're a real radical. You know, your career's in danger now if anybody finds out about this.
I have another kind of question to toss out, and then I know Megan in Manchester has a question as well for those of us engaged in neighborhood-based work. This question is related to that. What questions should a neighborhood group be asking to check whether or not they're really gathering people to promote belonging? Rather, even when they get those groups together or small groups, are the questions the same? I know you talk a lot about using questions. Are those nothing magical about a neighborhood group be asking those same questions to build connection, or there's something unique to neighborhood groups that we should be asking?
What's unique about neighborhood groups is they have the power to create anything they want. I love neighborhood groups because they're committed to a place. It's not a community of practice, and as soon as I commit to a place, I have to be accountable. But you ask them, what's the crossroads we're at as a neighborhood? What's the possible? When did you first start caring about this neighborhood? Mm-hmm. What are the gifts you have that you've not yet brought into this neighborhood? What are the questions are the same. Now, at some point, they'll want to do something. But every time we gather, we get connected first, and then we go to content. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of the neighborhood is you're stuck with each other. I didn't choose you fools. And I got involved in my local neighborhood council trustee, and I did some things that made Rama angry. And I probably should have done them in a nicer way or just let it go, you know. And she even held the book up in my, Peter, you wrote a book on community and you did this tonight. And I thought, holy shit, what am I going to do now? But then what happens is I see Rama in the grocery store. What do I do with that? She's in the produce section. Do I skip produce and come back at it? And so the neighborhood is place bound, and I am forced to learn to live with you no matter what. And that's a beautiful thing. That's where it's just where the real transformation locates, but it's a place. And doesn't matter what you talk about.
Yeah.
Talk about the environment, talk about kids. I don't care, but once they get connected, and 3 years later, Rama came up to me. She said, "I'm good now, Peter." And I said, "Thank you."
Just even entering into those neighborhood association meetings with that in mind would probably change the tone and structure of a lot of those meetings and the things that we invest our time in those meetings. Instead of measuring grass, maybe we should be the height of grass. Maybe we should be asking other questions, right? Connection and belonging. Yeah.
Sorry, I like what he said about place, like making us all, we're stuck together. Like if we all come together to solve hunger or to solve child abuse, like we can build these like processes for addressing it, whether it's like we all get in a line, we throw food in a bag, and then we throw that bag in a box, and then we take that box somewhere and give it to somebody, then we don't actually have to interact with them. But if I'm dedicated to a place, then my neighbor across the street, him and I are connected because we both live on the same block. He may have completely different views about things. He may say stuff that makes me cringe, But at the end of the day, like we're together because this is Bradford Street, and I think that's powerful.
You know, I heard a question once that changed my life. And he said, I'm warning you now, if you argue with me, I'm taking your side. And and it's hard to get past it because people do believe in things in our ways but so what do we want to create together? And in every neighborhood, it used to be called busybodies. Now they're called connectors. And Laura comes around and says, you want to clean up this street or not, Peter? Yes, Laura. Thank you. And something about that. But you're right about how do we make this a better place?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a driving question for neighbors is an age-old question of who is my neighbor? And I think I've discovered when I've talked with my neighbors, but just folks in the community, they rarely know the person 2 doors away, either side or across the street. The magic of the garage door has limited our access to the front of the house. And one of the ideas that Peter shared with us, me anyway, I've been in a phone conversation or two with him. He said, there are two great things you can do to really enhance neighborhood. And that is one, don't be in the back of your house, but be out in front and be available, see and interact with whatever's happening in front of your house. And the other is to learn people's names. And I would add to use people's names regularly. I think we find out stories about each other. We forget one another's names. We get embarrassed, and the conversation and or the relationship is hampered, if not doesn't go anywhere. And so I encourage our neighbors to, I try to use the name, but also say it so that they will hear me saying their name. It'll refresh their remembrance of the name and engage in more conversation with each other. There's been kind of an experiment of that here in our block for the past, or in our neighborhood. It's mostly a block this past year. And I've just been excited seeing more folks out in front of their homes, young families, their kids are now playing. It's a cul-de-sac, so it's a little safer to play outside, in front, and even in the street. They're riding their bikes. There's always someone going, car, or something like that, if it seems to be some situation unfolding. But families standing out and chatting up. And we've learned a number of things about our neighbors in recent months, health issues that were just quietly lived in without sharing those concerns before. And there's been a lot more community outreach and supporting one another in the process. So anyway, it's that whole thing of just being out there and being available in a sense and just being present. And then secondly, learning and using names.
Yeah.
Especially their children.
Yeah, children, right?
And the dog they walk too. That's a pretty important.
Well, we do know dogs more than we know people.
You can also be more intentional and ask people, what are you good at and what are you willing to teach others?
Yeah.
As a whole.
Well, I know our time is winding down, so I do want to jump in here and give Megan the floor and a chance to ask a question that she's wanting to ask that is maybe a little more contemporary. And then before we sign off, Peter, I want to be sure and hear from you about your most recent work, your most recent book I'm thinking of, because the book we've been talking about today was written in 2008. And certainly it still has impact and use, but I think you're thinking about some new things as well with your new book. But Megan, you jump in here first with your question and see what you can stir up.
Thank you. I am a bit of a stirrer, Peter.
Quit bragging.
Yeah. I recently read your article, The Moment in Time Reclaiming Local Structures for Democracy.
Thank you.
it really resonated with me because just as belonging has become a buzzword, I feel as though academics and nonprofits and podcasts and article writers and book writers, yourself excluded, have turned local into the thing that's going to save democracy. And when I tune into said podcast, book talk, whatever, it instantly becomes clear to me that they have not actually spent time in local community. So for those of us who are kind of here in the trenches, exhausted, underfunded, trying our best to make community and strengthen civic skills in our neighborhoods. Can you just reflect a little bit about localism and democracy and what your current thinking is? Because it was the first time, your article was the first time where I had really read something that resonated with me in kind of a concrete way, as far as something that's actionable, as opposed to we need people to be more active locally, and let's do that, everybody.
Well, you said a lot, Megan. Thank you. One way to think about it is what's going on now that I want to depart from. I don't want to try to get the council to change the way it gathers. But I say, how do we gather people that you know or somebody knows, David knows, bring them together and say, look, we need to decide what matters to us. And then what we want to do about it. And in most things, you can create a big part of it in your neighborhood. You don't have to write a letter. Democracy is not, when you vote, you give your power away. And democracy is us deciding that we're going to connect with each other and create an alternative way of being together. That's the possibility, an alternative way of being together. That's what Manchester had to do because of the crisis. And just let's take our attention off the people in charge. I've lost interest in the corner office. I'm not interested in how the mayor sees Cincinnati. And I know the mayor, and I go and talk to him once in a while, and I leave kind of thinking, well, he's more helpless than I am. And so part of us say, so what do you care about, Megan? Whatever issue it is, and then who else cares? And let's talk about what we can do. It's always too small, but it's the point. Mm. It's all we have. And then I don't know, we're working with neighborhoods now. We have something called the Common Good Alliance, and we're trying to connect neighborhoods first and then help them reclaim control of the land and other kind of stuff. So we overconnect them. We get 20, 30, 40 people in the room called by local leaders like you. And we say, okay, before we talk about what to do with this land or what we do with this, how to build the arts or what we do with the kids down the street, let's break into small groups and talk about what's the crossroads you're at this stage of your life. Well, we did this, and it turned out one group met and they said, damn, this is good. Why don't we run for local neighborhood council? And 6 of them ran and 5 got elected. And I thought, that's an outcome. Who knows how soon they'll be corrupted, but let's just take our attention off the structures we created at one time. And the church, to me, is amazing things churches are doing to get out of the building. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know, Megan, in the way you asked the question, you got it. And nobody knows what's best for us. I can offer a set of protocols, but I don't know where you should use it or what matters to you. And I just did the 3rd edition of Community, and I'm afraid to read it. But the work I'm doing now is trying to do this notion of relational activism with who you are. That's why I was so happy to be invited here. It's a neighborhood, and to me, that's where the future gets created. And whether it goes viral or not, who cares? Period.
Well,
Chet, thank you for all your comments, Chet. Nice to hear your voice. If you want to say something, say something.
yeah, jump in there, chat.
Oh, hey, Peter, I'm a sponge. I take my own notes and Google some of the links. Megan had I'm going to read that article that she mentioned about the moment in time. Just up the road in Ohio, or Columbus anyway.
Oh, wow, cool.
I've been a big fan of David's, and I've reserved your book from our local library and look forward to diving in.
I hope they have it. If they don't, give me a call.
I can there's a request that you can request. I've done that too. Thanks, Peter.
Well, thank you for all the comments and discussion today. I read The Abundant Communities, 5 or 6 years ago, and that's a very impactful, meaningful book that I still use examples from all the time. But I think it was Steve that made me aware of Community book, and Trenton had read it and enjoyed our conversation, and it likewise is one to add to your library and worthy of your time for sure. Well, appreciate the discussion we've been able to have today. Always try to be a good steward of your time. Thanks for giving up an hour to join us. The conversation doesn't have to end here. You can stay in connection, and very least, be sure and join us again next month. Peter, yes, you had something else you want to add?
I would love if all of you would say, what gift did you receive from our being together today?
Oh.
So it's a nice way to complete. Most of the time the only time people talk about your gifts is when you retire or die. So I'm trying to bring that in. You don't have to do it, but I'm just saying it's a nice way to complete. And then
the gift I found was a way to create peace.
Got it. Thank you, Patty. You picked a small one, didn't you? Other quick statements?
Jump in.
Asking more intentional and focused questions is going to get you better results. That's my big takeaway.
I like the question, what's the crossroads you find yourself in?
Yeah. And that you could ask it again and again and again because it changes. Thank you. I just to be with you. Knowing something that I did mattered to you, it's a big deal. People say you've heard it before. No, I haven't. Because every time you hear it, then I say, well, wow. Oh, she's rewritten my book. Damn.
Yes. He was in that 10-month study or whatever our gathering.
I know. I do the same
week
thing.
After week, we were marking up the book.
Mark it up.
Laura, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Hopeful Neighborhood Project that also talks about gifts and possibilities. Jennifer will say, imagine the possibilities for your neighborhood, and keeping the conversation on, what is the good that can be done, and what is the good that you see?
Yeah, and when you do that, it's a political act in the best sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you're rearranging who's in charge here. All right. Thank you, David, for putting up with that.
Well, thank you. I wrote down several timestamps here as we went along saying, oh, I need to go back and listen to that. Oh, I need to go back and listen to that. Oh, I need to go back and listen to that. So lots of good takeaways here today. We appreciate your time and appreciate everybody being on here. Once again, we'll end the recording and bring the class to an end.
We appreciate you bringing us together. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for joining in.